Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we continue working on the train. Now today has been the most informative day regarding trains, and I'm very proud and happy to say that I've actually learned a ton. So I do have to thank a couple of members in particular, including my own moderators, Maddie and Captain Perk. Both of them have given me the most informative discussion here to understand some basics about trains. And then a bunch of people here on my Discord server. I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm not going to list you by name, but it has been super informative. I do know that Jimmy Swaggy has or is a part of a lot of train builds, including developing some of the systems. And as you could see, he went ahead and gave me a detailed explanation of some of the things to add and do. And just that information by itself has let me kind of get in on the know and hopefully develop something that is going to be a little bit more realistic. From the beginning, I'd said that I am not going to go and make this train realistic with dials and everything that a real life train has. It'll be pretty much like my ships. You don't hop into a big ship and turn a key and it runs, but this will kind of be like that, albeit there is going to be detailed elements that can match what you expect from a real life train, because I also don't want it to be purely science fiction either. And not just that, I actually do enjoy learning and the intricacies of train travel. So with that in mind, I am going to be making some changes and adjustments. I started off with some simple changes. I added this crossover on the front and the back. This area is going to be refinished. Up here we do have a little seating area, of course. This I know is unrealistic. We'll see what I may or may not use, but you see here when you're sitting, you have now this elevated area, whereas on this side it is a nice door. Here is going to be access to the motor or generator, and in here, this currently isn't attached to anything, but what is the throttle lever. Now of course, if I just shove it all the way to full, it's going to start moving very quickly, too quickly. And then if I turn that down and then push this one up, this is my brake. So that's how I can get it to stop. So obviously right now there are absolutely no microcontrollers in this creation. The only ones are for the door, but none for the actual operation of it. And today I came to the Discord server with even more comments, more awesome suggestions and ideas. The one thing that I'm currently struggling with is gaining a metric for how powerful this train should be in relation to the cargo. Of course, in real life, you could imagine a locomotive like this can probably tow like 30 trailers or 30 cars. I know some of you are going to cringe there, 30 cars. But in Stormworks, of course, you have the slip on the rails and all kinds of stuff, so it may not need or may not be able to do as many. So maybe for me, if I focus on 5 or 10, and that's actually where I was suggested the brick, which finally gives me that metric I'm looking for. So it actually benchmarks you based on your axles, what your speed should be. So obviously this is a very heavy container or trailer or car, but the idea is that with it, you're actually able to determine if your train is powerful enough or your locomotive is powerful enough. Right now, I'm focusing on that power in terms of these motors that are down here. There is not yet a generator inside the locomotive, so currently it's just fully empty. There is a large diesel tank on the bottom intended for the diesel, but what I'm going to be testing is the actual ability for this locomotive to tow or pull multiple cars or pull that benchmark car based on kind of the current setup, and then go from there. That's why I'm running just infinite electricity. I'm running no generator right now, just a very simple system to see, because I have absolutely no idea if 4 of these medium motors are enough for 6 rail wheels. But now is as good a time as any to start on the main microcontroller. I do know a lot of things are going to go into it, so eventually it'll be built up quite heavily. But for the time being, what I am going to put is very simple, and we'll kind of go from there. So we'll have the number input for the forward throttle. Then we'll have a number input for the reverser. And based off that, we're of course going to have a node going to the actual motors, because I need to be able to back this thing up to my brick car. So that's where this all comes in. Now, even with all this, I could have a brake. You could see if we go into the data here. Now, bear in mind that I've never done a train, so I know limited amount of train information. I'm learning as I go, and frankly, it's actually very intriguing. So if you look down here, you could see that it has wheel slip and it has brakes. So the brakes are currently able to be applied in terms of a throttle. So that should also be a throttle I see here. And it'll be number output or number, yeah, brakes. Sorry, it'll be number input. We're applying the brakes and it's going to be going to the brake itself, which is going to be a number output. The thing to keep in mind is, in addition to that, we're going to now add an emergency brake, which is just going to be on and off. And this one is going to set the brake to full instantaneously. So the brake system is quite easy. Everything here is quite easy. It'll pretty much be this brake goes to this brake unless you turn this switch. If you turn the switch, it will automatically go all the way, so this is off. If the emergency brake is on, this goes all the way to 1. So quite simple. Maybe too simple, maybe there is better ways, more realistic, but again, I've mentioned time and time again, this is just supposed to be a very functional train. So this is now our brake system. Our throttle now is a little bit different because we have the reverser. Normally, you could just put negative power and it will be in reverse. But to kind of keep a little bit of realism here, we can actually have this applied. Now, if you put your reverser and your forward throttle, obviously you can counter them out. So it can just simply be a function, or let's just see if this does work, where we're going to take the reverse throttle, which is input as a positive, and we're just going to make it become a negative for us here. So now it's going to be applying negative throttle to those motors. Connecting everything up and testing it out, we'll see what it looks like. Looking here at the controls to a train that's similar to what I'm building here, it's interesting. They have the reverser, then they have the power, then brake and independent brakes. So one of the people actually did mention in my Discord server that having the brakes where it's applied via the locomotive, or applying the brakes to everything that you are towing as well, to all the cars. Now, I just love these levers. To be honest, I'm very reluctant to remove the levers and not have them. I just find them so satisfying to push. But unfortunately, it only fits 3 of them like this. Again, for my simplicity, maybe it'll just be easier for me to have the brakes be the only, just apply to everything. So there's no independent brakes, you just have the brakes applying to the whole train. Now again, nothing is finalized, so as I am working on this, there's still a lot of changes that will be made at some point. So here we have the reverse, here we have the power, here we'll have the brakes. Then I didn't put the emergency brakes, we'll do that, but this now gets attached to all of the brakes on all the axles here. So we got a couple of them, and then the rest go here. So that is on the brakes, and then of course the motors themselves. We got 4 medium motors per axle, and I'm just going to make sure all that is connected. Now again, I don't know if this is the right ratio of motors to the thing, but we will kind of see through trial and error. If I spawn this in and take a look at what I've just done, Now if we apply the forward power, you can see it starts to move. Now obviously it does move very fast. Here we have the brake. I've added the emergency brake here as well, so if you press that and try to give it power, it will not want to move. That makes sense. And then if I push this, we can go back. That's the reverser. Now again, we're getting a lot of speed. A lot more speed than I would have expected, but that's just because I don't really know the train handling physics and all that stuff in the game. So that is for sure going to be the downside of me learning this. I'm pretty much a noob when it comes to this. I really will admit that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so now I've attached this brick, and let's see if I give it forward power. Obviously, full forward power does not help us at all in this case. I feel like you want to ease the power. Now, for sure, there's got to be some kind of command that I can do to apply the throttle and limit the amount of slip on the wheels. If it detects slip, it decreases the power going to our wheels there. But it is moving, just not moving very nicely. So I'm going to keep playing around and seeing if I can put a value to sort of clamp and make sure that this works properly here. But again, we're moving it, not at a very good speed, but here we are. I just got some great information here from Jimmy Swag. Apparently, there's a way to clamp your motors in the positive and negative, so then you'll be able to pull the maximum amount. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, what Jimmy Swag says is that for 6 axles, you want 2 medium motors per 6 axle. So I actually have double that, which is probably the reason why I'm getting a little bit of slippage here. I do have to say the train community is super intense about their passion, and I'm getting more help than ever for this type of thing, which is really useful. I do love trains, but I also love a lot of other things, and I can't be an expert at everything, so it does help when there are experts such as yourselves that can feed me this type of information and make sure I'm on the right track here. I've added in a working generator, and I don't quite know if it's enough power at this moment. It is a medium-sized modular engine, but the idea is to test out the speed and functionality of this locomotive. But every single time that I talk with big train fans, I always am amazed at the knowledge that they possess for these locomotives and the detail and intricacy of their systems, which is honestly truly impressive. I've added in some more microcontrollers as well as the engine, and now we're just going to be testing out this, but really you can see that it is struggling to get above 6 meters per second here, even with this sort of track slippage that I'm seeing. Well, there we go. Now we're finally climbing steadily. Alright, that's good. That's definitely a good sign. We're going to want to get to around 25 meters per second. That is what the rolling stock, or this sort of car benchmark is. If we can get this to 25 meters per second, that's around 55 miles an hour, and that is determined good for this type, this many axles. And you can see we're under that. So really it's feathering the controls. But if I turn it down too much, we're not going to be doing anything. And if I turn it up too much, it'll also not give us the right amount of throttle. So you can see we're kind of in that 20 range again, 21. Slowly climbing. 22 or so. Oh, you can see that it's starting to slip. And it dropped. As soon as it slips, it drops. Interesting here. Makes sense though. I did add some weight near the wheels here. And you could see with this setup, as long as we're not slipping, which we were in the corner a little bit there, it's hanging out around 22 meters per second, so just under that 50-mile-an-hour mark at just under 0.4 throttle. So I may have to clamp my throttle at 0.4 to prevent sliding. Now again, this is a large mass back here that's supposed to reflect as if it was a train. So presumably if we can have a you know, a couple of cars like this will be okay. And then if you want a higher speed, you can use a different locomotive or a second locomotive that's in slave mode with this one. But seeing this number means that our benchmarking has proven accurate, at least for now. So I'm going to proceed with this and continue on the build. So thank you for watching. We're going to make sure in the next video to talk about the microcontroller, the actual build process, the slaving of second and third locomotives, pass-throughs that go through the cars, and all that good stuff, as well as decor, of course. With that, I'm going to continue on doing tests. I will make this work. I'm very excited now. After seeing how cool this thing looks, I'm really a fan. And I'm excited to get it up and running for all of you to be able to enjoy. So thank you again for all the help. I do know that now at this point it's going to take a little bit of fine-tuning, but we're going to get there, and we're going to have a Alta locomotive soon. So thank you for watching, stay tuned for more content, and as always, happy Stormworksing everyone.